Hi. Say, I'm going to work today on these round panels, and I primed these in a previous video. You could see how I got them ready to paint, and they are birch. They are 5/8 inch thick birch panels, plywood panels, and I primed them with 3 coats of absorbent ground. And then I scrape them in between the second and third coats. So now it's nice and flat, and it is also ready to paint. I was thinking that circular and square canvases, I have a lot of experience painting square canvases, not circular ones, but I've decided that during the course of this series that I may have to determine a bottom, and I'm not quite ready to do that. I think I'm going to discover that as the compositions evolve and as I go through working back and forth with these. So what I decided to do was I have a piece of plywood here that's acting as my table, and I got this piece. Let me show you. I have this is a Lazy Susan turntable. It's very inexpensive, and I ordered one of these, and it came the other day, and so this is going to allow me to spin the composition around easily. And I've also mounted just a couple screws here to kind of hold this, and I measured the center, and I can put this here and it still spins. These are green painter's tape that I have just rolled over just to kind of give a little bit of a tack, because this board's at a slight angle to show you a little better in the video. So then what I did was I centered the panel, and I drew this line around it so that I can kind of recenter them as I go, and this way I can sort of be all ready to work on the panels, and you can see now that I can spin these around if I needed to. Now I have oh my gosh, how many of these do I have? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I have 9 of these, and I'm going to be working probably just a little bit on each one. I like my beginning sort of underpaintings to be gestural, to be fast, and I like them to kind of be my reactions to this big open spot, or space. So what I'm going to do is try to create a balanced composition using some ink. Now I'm using a real standard Japanese ink, and I have it sort of thinned out or watered down in 4 different cups over here on the side, and this is just thinned out with a little bit of water, and they're different densities. So I think, however, just from past results, I'm going to start with the darkest, just because I think that that's fun and kind of crazy. So I also have my my calligraphy brush here, and this is very much like I don't know, it's kind of like a mop in watercolor in a way, and this is a bamboo brush. I love these for the gestural beginnings. So let me show how this goes. I'm going to load up my brush, and then I'm just going to create some marks. I'm thinking that I'm going to move from the center out and spin these around a little bit. There are some gestures that I've been playing around with for quite a long time, and it's these kind of arcs with these small bumps. They're almost like bubble-like shapes or cloud-like shapes. You can see it sort of coming out now. And I'm just going to spin this around because I want it to be a centrally composed composition in a way, but I want it to have a balance anyway as I spin this around. It's a little bit sort of lopsided here. Kind of get that up there. So this is kind of, I don't want to think about it too much. I'm kind of very much reacting. This is like setting a riff. I'm a bass player, and I like this idea that there's like this foundational riff. Now, a lot of this will be painted over in the next steps. I just know it will be. But really, that's all I need to do. You can see some of it is starting to drip. So what I'm going to do is, I think I like this right now. This is a good starting place. I'm going to set this down and I'm going to come back to it a little bit later. Okay, so here's another one, and I'm going to begin this one. Again, I have my ink over here, and I have this on my turntable, and I'm just going to begin with some gestures. And I'm not going to talk too much this time. I'm just going to kind of work this out. That's nice. Now, I should say that I'm reacting to this space and I'm creating sort of a density of marks, and they have sort of a central area where they're all kind of converging. The idea that I've been thinking about for this series about exploring is, aside from the roundness and this idea that round windows or portals, like they feel like they're going into, or maybe that they're kind of tunnels or windows into different spaces. I actually had a daydream the other day about how these portals could be installed in a gallery where you would walk in and there would be sort of these round portals going around the gallery, sort of like an installation, as if you were inside I don't know, like inside I don't know. I'm thinking submarine, but that's too obvious. But I like this idea that these are, the roundness of them really lends them to a whole bunch of visual metaphors, and that's one of them that I'm liking right now. I also think I'm intrigued with this idea that things might be emerging, other than just me passively looking. So this in and out of a circular space is also intriguing me. Now, what I've been doing with these is, as I let them sit, you can see that the ink is taking on these really nice grays. And as I get through these 9 or 10 circles, I'm going to come back and work on them some more. But in the meantime, what I do is I'm going to lift this up a little bit. I'm going to mist it here. I have my water bottle here, and I like this idea of the ink taking on kind of this spidering effect. It's very organic. I don't know if you can see that. Let me see if I can lift it up closer to the camera here. But some of these areas you can see, like down here, are starting to spider web out, sort of. They're spreading around, and I like that. There's something about the beginning of any series that I start. I kind of like this idea that there's a wildness about it that goes between chaos, and then I'll come back and save some things and paint over others, and then there's like order, like I'm somehow trying to make some control over this stuff that's happening. So I kind of set my series up like this, where I have bookends of an idea. In this case, it's portals looking through these round compositions. The idea that the compositions might feel open or closed compositions. So closed compositions meaning your eye sort of is sort of, the attention is kept in the center, and then open compositions where you can imagine this might be part of a larger scene. So I'm going to be playing with open and closed compositions as well. And then I'm going to play around with materials. This ink right now just seems to be a really free way to begin these things. And I know it's sort of like, well, Johnston, that only took you like 2 minutes to do that. Well, sometimes that's all it takes, I guess. So I'm going to let this one set, and then we're going to take a look at the second stage. So now I've here's a one of the panels from early on with the first layer. You can see how this has turned into this really lovely kind of a lighter gray. I think I can hold this up here. You can see in some of the regions there is some density. There's also some areas where it kind of breaks apart, which I kind of like that. And let me get this recentered here. You can see that when I turn this around, the balance of the composition, of course, shifts, and that's kind of intriguing for me right now. I mean, now it's feeling like it's got this sort of downward pressure, and when this is let me get the center again. When this is turned the other way, you can see that it just has a different kind of buoyancy, I suppose. So anyway, I'm just going to continue to flip these things around like that as I go. But now what I've got on the side is I've got a little bit of gesso here in case I want to make some editing. I may or may not do that right now, but what I do also have is a little bit of the ink at full strength now, and a smaller round. So this is just a really small round. I don't know if you can make that out, but it's a number 4 round, and I'm going to see if I can break this up into some regions or something. I don't know, just kind of react to these shapes. So I'll show you what this looks like. I'm very much a fan of drawing, and I love drawing in my paintings and using drawing to help me discover different shapes and compositions. And so I'm using this heavier or this denser ink. Now I can start to call out some regions. You can see like there's a kind of a shape there I've made, and this adds to this density of marks. I also think that this in here is starting to feel like a shape as well, which is nice. And really that's it. I'm just going to come back and start subdividing these, adding this other layer, which I think is really nice. And again, got Fat Yoshi here, and I'm going to give it a little mist, and you'll be able to see maybe some of those edges start to spiderweb out a little bit, which is in my mind really desirable. I really enjoy that. I'm also noticing that when I prime these with a brush, there's also kind of a grain that is in the surface, and I like that too. So these marks in here are starting to get kind of a ghosting of that texture, which reminds me of like linen. It's very tactile actually, and that's interesting too. Kind of, it feels like something on fabric maybe. And it's kind of like lace, the edges of these pieces, and that's starting to get me to think of some really interesting things as well. But really, this idea of layers, marks upon marks, building up and tearing down and reconfiguring the composition is really what I enjoy to do. So I'm going to hit a couple of these, and I'll be back in a little bit to show you the group maybe. Okay, well here is another one I'm going to begin. You can see this one. They all kind of started out with their own compositions. This one's getting kind of a swoosh going through here and another splash going up that. So there's this back and forth kind of feel to this one, and I might react to this similarly with this new layer here. And again, I'm using full strength ink on this layer just to kind of pull out some shapes. A lot of my work is improvisational, and it's because I play music improvisationally many times in many ways, and I just like the idea of reacting to moments that happened before, and this idea of something that was there that like a day before, something that now I'm reacting to, it's sort of like having a visual conversation with the past, in a way. Like, oh, I see what you're saying, but now I'm going to react to that, and then have this new this new presence come out. So again, these loopy kind of characters have been part of my work for a little while. And again, I'm right now just trying to get acclimated to the circular composition, this idea of layering within this format. And boy, this is looking pretty sweet, I think. I'm going to hit it with some water right now, and watch that. I've been calling spider webbing, but it's kind of lacing. I think it's like, it reminds me more of like lace than it does anything else. Yeah, and maybe later on I'm going to incorporate some drips. Now, whenever I get drips in there, that's kind of interesting. Like, they start to really suggest and talk about gravity, and that makes me think of the bottom and the top. And so right now there are some drips. We'll see kind of how that makes the orientation feel a little bit differently. So you can see, I'll get it a little closer here. You can see that there's a second layer now. This is exciting. I'm pretty excited about this. I'm having a really good time, and I'm keeping my eyes open for wonderful things to happen. So I hope you've enjoyed this, and we'll see if there's another step. Yep, here they are. Here's 9 of them.